Welcome to Step by Step, the podcast where I break it all down. Life, drama, gossip, and everything in between. I'm your host, Taya, and this is my audio journal, filled with stories, reflections, and the kind of tea you won't find anywhere else. Each episode, we'll take it step by step, starting with Monday mindfulness to kickstart your week, diving into the magic of Wednesdays with our main episode, and wrapping up with Your Say Friday, where your stories, questions, and even a little anonymous gossip take center stage. This isn't just my podcast, it's ours. So grab your headphones and take this journey with me, one step at a time. Hello and welcome back to Your Say Friday. This is where I dive into your stories, thoughts, and dilemmas. This is a place where I share your voice and your feelings. Have you ever felt like a total fraud? Like any minute now someone's going to call you out and say, do you even go to the school? That was a joke. But more realistically, it would probably sound something like, hey, you actually don't belong here. Even though you worked your ass off to get to where you are. Yeah, that feeling is called imposter syndrome, and you're not alone. Today, we dive into that sneaky little voice that creeps into your head and makes you second guess everything. It's a branch of fear and doubt. Whether you're climbing the career ladder, stepping into a new role, or just trying to take your own success, imposter syndrome can hit hard. But here's the truth, you do deserve to be here or you wouldn't be here. I briefly touched on this topic in the main episode earlier this week, so if you haven't listened yet, be sure to check it out for more insights. For those who may not know or don't really get it, imposter syndrome is a persistent feeling of self-doubt even when you've worked hard and truly earned your achievements. Instead of celebrating your success, you might convince yourself that you just got lucky, or even worse, that any moment someone will expose you as a fraud. So imagine landing your dream job and stepping into an exciting opportunity. Instead of feeling proud, you're overwhelmed with thoughts like, I don't belong here, or they must have made a mistake. If you can relate, if that sounds familiar, then you're probably going to love this episode. Earlier this week, I asked you guys on Instagram if you've ever experienced imposter syndrome and how you've managed to overcome it. Firstly, for those who replied, thank you so much for investing your time and energy into me and this podcast and wanting to be a part of it. Your responses were incredibly insightful, and I want to take the time to break some of them down because I know many of us can relate. One listener shared her experience. She said that at first she faked it until she made it, whilst at the same time she realized that the key was to research as much as she could and continuously improve herself until she felt truly confident in her abilities. She stipulated that even though you're not confident, basically act confident until everyone else believes it. She also compared it to getting older and understanding that you no longer have time for certain people or drama in your life. When she started to prioritize herself, she began to realize her worth, and imposter syndrome slowly started to fade away. So did the time for negativity. I found this so relatable and empowering because prioritizing yourself can feel so challenging at times, and it's very easy not to do. What is easy though is to get caught up in people's opinions or expectations. But when you finally start valuing your own journey, you start to gain a new sense of confidence. She also pointed out that once you've been in a space long enough, confidence in your knowledge grows and those feelings of doubt start to disappear. You basically just become one with who you want to be. But sometimes faking it till you make it is necessary. You have to throw yourself into the deep end and learn to swim. She continues to explain that behind the scenes you might be drowning, but doing the research and putting in the work is what really builds your confidence. So keep your head above the water. This listener was also very passionate about journaling, which is indeed a great tool for self-development. She recommends journaling every day, but if you can't, still try and check in with yourself and your goals at least once a week. So another listener recommended a book and she shared how it helped. She says it's been a great tool for her, especially for artists or really anyone feeling creatively blocked. It's not just about creativity, it's a lifestyle and a mindset shift. When she first started her business, she struggled with imposter syndrome, constantly thinking, who do I think I am? She was even shy about calling herself an artist. But over time, she became more confident, and the book really helped her reshape how she approached life. This is what she said.
I have had imposter syndrome experiences, definitely, especially when I started my business. I was like, oh my God, who do I think I am? I didn't even want to say, oh, I'm a new artist. Like, I feel shy about it. And that happens even with like calling ourselves like artists. I'm like, oh, I'm not a practicing artist, but we are artists. And like, you don't have to be creating all the time to call yourself that. Sometimes when you say that, people are like, oh, so what do you do for work? Or, oh, you make art. What art do you make? And it's kind of like, yeah, then you get like doubt and you're like, well, am I? But yeah, I think I've overcome it now. I think the book has really helped. I really need to finish that book, honestly. It's really good. It's meant to be like a course, but yeah, it's like meant to be like a chapter per week. I've gone really slow, and it's got like exercises too after every chapter. It's got exercises, and at the same time there's like weekly things that you have to do and daily things that you have to do. It's really good, and I would definitely have those like implemented in my life on my everyday.
Thank you so much for that recommendation. I will definitely be checking that book out. I feel like even if you're not an artist or a creative, we all go through stages where we feel less inspired. I'm sure it has tools that everyone can utilize and benefit from. I know so many of us struggle with that exact feeling. Whether you're an artist, a business owner, or just stepping into a new role, it can be tough to fully own your title. I've personally found that saying it out loud, even when it feels awkward, helps break that mental block. There's something about bringing your thoughts into the physical realm. Now let's talk about overcoming imposter syndrome. It can feel isolating, but you're not alone. It helps to put ourselves in the shoes of someone battling these feelings to better understand what it means. And perhaps if you don't have imposter syndrome or never have, you can emphasize with it. Imagine landing an opportunity, an amazing one, something that you've worked so hard for. But instead of celebrating, your inner critic takes over. You start comparing yourself to others, convincing yourself that they're better, and feeling like you need to overwork just to prove your worth. Even though you already earned your spot, or you might feel like giving up because you don't think you're worthy, or you might never get to a stage where you can get through it. Here's the thing. Your feelings are valid, but they don't define your worth. Overcoming imposter syndrome starts with recognizing it. Ask yourself, what evidence do I have that I don't belong here? Or what would I tell a friend who felt this way? Quite often, we are so harsh on ourselves, and we would never speak to anyone the way we speak to ourselves. So call yourself out on it when you do pick up on how harsh you're being on yourself. Sometimes simply shifting the narrative can make all the difference. Instead of saying, I'm not good enough, try saying, I've worked hard for this and I deserve it. Another way to reframe your thought is by celebrating your wins, no matter how small. Keep track of your achievements and remind yourself how far you've come. Quite often we don't see it as we live through it, but when we look back, we're like, whoa, that's like a whole different human. So let's dive into some interesting facts about imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome was first identified in 1978 by psychologists Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes. Initially, it was thought to primarily affect high-achieving women, but research has shown that everyone can experience it, regardless of gender, age, or background. Apparently, over 70% of people will experience imposter syndrome at some point in their lives. Michelle Obama and Albert Einstein have both admitted to feeling like frauds at times and experiencing this so-called feeling. But another more interesting fact is that imposter syndrome is actually linked to perfectionism. People who struggle with it often set unrealistically high expectations for themselves, which fuels self-doubt. Now, that's something I can relate to. But here's the good news. Imposter syndrome isn't a permanent state of mind, and you can fight it off. If you're struggling with imposter feelings, here are a few practical strategies to help you break free. Firstly, acknowledge your feelings. The first step to overcoming imposter syndrome, and anything really, is by recognizing it. Remind yourself that feelings aren't facts. They are very real in your mind, but in reality, a lot of the time, no one is even thinking that you don't belong here or that you're an imposter. My friend was literally saying this morning that if you perceive yourself in a certain way, others will believe you. So choose your direction. You have the choice to be a non-belonger or a confident gal or guy that earned their spot. Secondly, talk about sharing your doubts with friends, mentors, or colleagues. Sometimes that can help you gain perspective or a different kind of perspective. Chances are they've been through it too, or they can relate in one shape or form. But if you don't want to talk to others, talk to yourself or write it down. Next, you really do need to stop comparing yourself to others. Everyone's journey is different. Focus on your own progress instead of measuring yourself against someone else's highlight reel. It will only cause you damage. You need to set yourself realistic goals. Break down your goals into manageable steps and celebrate each small win. When you do this, you're not biting off more than you can chew and therefore minimize the risk of burnout, failure, or dissatisfaction. Lastly, seek professional help if needed, a coach or therapist. There's so many great supports out there that can provide guidance if imposter syndrome is holding you back from achieving your full potential. There's so many avenues that you can go down. I'd love to hear from you. What fears have held you back from pursuing your dreams? How do you practice self-love when those doubts creep in? And also, how do you know that you have let yourself trust the universe? Have you got any examples where the universe has naturally and effortlessly aligned for you? If today's episode resonated with you, please follow and subscribe to my podcast on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, or just one of them. And don't forget to share this episode with someone who might need encouragement. Supporting each other is the best way to grow as a community. Remember, your voice matters, and together we can tackle imposter syndrome one step at a time. See you next week for another inspiring episode.